Welcome to Aspire to Lead, where we empower educators and school leaders to grow, inspire, and thrive. I'm your host, Joshua Stamper, author, speaker, and leadership coach, bringing you conversations that spark transformation, challenge the status quo in education, and equip you to make a lasting impact on your campus or in your district. For more information and resources, visit joshstamper.com as we're looking to ascend to new leadership heights together. All right, welcome back, Aspire Leaders. Thank you so much for joining once again this week as we are really in the thick of it as the school year has begun. I had the pleasure and honor to be in the presence of two amazing folks who are on the screen right now, Mary and Jill, as they were a part of the Vibe EDU event out in Anaheim, California. You all flew in, I flew in. We got to be together to see such passionate and amazing educators join us for that event. And it was so good to meet you. And I had to have you on the show because you're making a huge difference in the lives of girls with your company, Girls Mentorship, and I cannot wait to talk to you about that. But before we dive in, though, about this huge project you got going on, and there's so many pieces that we're going to dive into today, but I just want to have you just share a little bit about yourself, because I know you have ties to education from parents, and I know there's a huge love there for the educational space, but also you partner with so many educators in the work that you're doing. So Mary, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off, and then, we'll jump into Jill's story too. Share with the audience as far as a little bit about yourself and why you're doing what you're doing today.
Hi, Josh. Thanks so much. And everyone tuning in, we love a good leader podcast because we're all leaders in our own right, which is fun. I think that was such a light bulb moment for us going into Anaheim because, as you mentioned, both of our moms are teachers. So we've been immersed in school, in districts, in summertime, getting classrooms ready for years.
Since we were in the womb.
Right. But I don't think either one of us wanted to be teachers in the traditional sense. So we went off and we created this company. You mentioned it. It's called Girls Mentorship. And with what we have been up to for the last 5 years, sincerely, we felt like we were on an island. Like we were coming up with these ideas and they were so forward thinking, and just why weren't other people having these conversations? And we stepped into Anaheim with all of these other teachers having the exact same conversations. So what we realized in that moment was we kind of siloed ourselves because we're outside of schools. Very recently have we started working with schools for a multitude of different reasons. One, it's really hard to get into schools. So we've knocked on the door for the last 4 years. And in year 5, we're finally in, which is cool. But it was fun to be immersed in conversations with educators who are bumping up against the same things that we're seeing in our personal life with the way we lead girls. So we own a company called Girls Mentorship. We teach life and personal development skills to those girls. So things like, how do you rebound from a friendship fight? What does it mean to critically think? Do you have values? Can you set boundaries? All of these things that we expect, but we don't actually teach until we're like life smacks us in the face around 25 to 30. And we got to kind of figure it out on our own. So we try to get in there a little bit earlier to help with the development of those really important skills that come with the development of your frontal lobe, which is super cool. So it's fun to be in an entire room of educators that we could relate to. Thanks for being one of those educators.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It was so fun to get to know both of you. And you both have this huge energy. I know we were laughing with the word aura, but I think all of us had that vibe coming in that, we really wanted to change practices and change the way that education is done. And then also find support systems to help our students to be better people. And so, Jill, will you jump in and share a little about yourself too?
Absolutely. So I'll take us back to kind of the origin of when Mary and I met, just to kind of paint the picture for the listeners tuning in. It's funny because Josh, also, we have found a red thread that is now within the trifecta of the three of us, but both Mary and I are from Colorado. We didn't know each other when growing up. The funny part is she was an athlete, I was a cheerleader, and we laughed because we were like, we probably played or were in the same area. Our high schools were probably playing one another. So we've definitely probably come in contact with one another without even knowing it. I moved from Colorado to come to ASU for college, and Mary's story is a little bit different in regard to why she came here. But for me, I was on this path of I needed to get out of my small town. I was a big fish in a small little pond, and I said, I got to get out and see the world, people. So I did, and, got my education. I actually did want to be a teacher, but my mom really guided me elsewhere. She was like, listen, you could always go back to teaching, get your teaching certificate, but please get something different. Because at the time, 30 years ago, she saw the foresight of things are changing and things that are challenging now, she was still faced with. And she was like, you know what? If you are still really drawn to this, you can come back to it. So I've always had something on my heart in regards to leading and teaching and facilitating something. So I got my degree from ASU and did some odd and end jobs, climbed the corporate ladder. I was in wine sales for a couple of years, loved the industry. It was super fun, but it was very male dominant. I felt like I was getting passed up left and right for promotion. I was raising my hand, and they were like, you are really good actually selling. Go be that girl for us. And I was like, you know what? I'm not into this. So I was looking for something else that was going to serve me and bring me joy. And I remember yoga was one of my outlets. It was the thing that I got to kind of escape from. That was really kind of my start of my personal growth and development journey, was going to my mat. And I remember seeing a girl in front of me have the cutest leggings. And I was like, my God, I'm being so not yogi-like on my mat, because I really want to ask her after class where she got her pants from. Come to find out, they were from Lululemon.
I don't know if anybody listening has ever heard of the little known store. It's very local to Scottsdale.
Yeah,
boutique,
very small.
Yeah, very
super small, quaint.
Stretchy pants. I don't know if you guys have worn any of them, heard of it. Anyway, so I went home and did a little research about what Lululemon was. I was like, where is this store? She was talking about a showroom and that they had weird hours. And then all of a sudden, I remember reading about the company and I was like, this is the place for me. This is where I want to work. They sound awesome, innovative, fun. All of the things that matter to me, they possess. So I jumped in. I remember calling my parents and saying, I'm now going to retail. And they were so pissed. They were like, we just spent thousands of dollars for you to go and get an out-of-state tuition to now go and fold stretchy pants. They were shocked. And I'm sure some of my parents who are listening into this podcast can relate. Like, oh,
for sure.
no, can't believe she made that choice. But it was the best choice that I made. So I was with the company for 10 years, and that's really where Mary and I, our friendship began. She worked at Lululemon. I was there as well. And that company really stands on it's people over profit.
And
so
I would say leadership.
And leadership, 100%.
They had a plethora of opportunities for leadership, management, as well as employees to go the personal growth and development route. Opportunities on opportunities on opportunities to really learn who you were, how to lead yourself, how to lead others, then how to lead team. And it really led to, I think, the development for us before we even knew it was developing of Girls Mentorship, because we wanted to really take what we learned within that company and what we were learning about ourselves and give it to people who were not as blessed to work for a company who is so forward thinking about how to develop their employees.
Yeah. When we would do trainings and development, they were really, they preached, we want to develop the whole person. And I was like, why haven't I ever been taught this? This is incredible. And of course, growing up and moving to school and having my own life experiences, Mary having her own life experiences, we've encountered challenges to trauma, to all of these things that are now carrying with us in our present day. And Lululemon really was the catalyst of us being able to hold the mirror in front of us to say, like, do we like the person that's staring back at us? Or what do we need to heal? Who do we need to forgive? And that really set us on the path of working and developing on ourselves before we came to the conclusion of like, can we do this for girls?
And now it's no longer a question. That's a resounding yes.
Yeah. So just a little timeline, a little backstory of where we came from, but really our experiences, our upbringings are so different, but yet they are very similar, that it was not a shock when we both said, we want to do this together.
All right. So you said that it took you 5 years to get into the school systems and working with schools. Obviously, there's a need. We had conversations on site at the Vibe EDU, and you had a chance also to share with a bunch of educators there as far as all of the amazing things that you're doing. Before we jump into like your summer camp and some of those other things that you offer, I'd love for you to share out kind of what you saw as far as the need and why it's so important for our educators listening to connect with you for this service.
I mean, the need for people who can see it, because there is a vast amount of people who can't see it because they don't know what they need, right? So it becomes hard to see the whole if you can't even fix part of the self. So the need came well before COVID, but COVID was like a magnifying glass. I think around 2012, it makes sense, right? Cell phones came out, social media, you start to see an increase in anxiety, depression, eating disorders. Empathy is going down, self-absorption is going up. It's all the wrong things trending in all the wrong directions. COVID just gave everybody an opportunity to slow down and really look at it, because before we were just go, 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 right? Parents, especially, Josh, you well know this with the soccer team.
A small
that you
fleet,
have.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. You were trucking them off to school and then going to work yourself. And there was a large period of the day where you didn't get to interact with your kids or see these qualities come out, but in very brief doses. COVID gave everybody an opportunity to hang out with one another. So they got to see where the cracks in the foundation were happening. For whatever reason, whatever divine intervention happened, Jill and I decided to launch a 4-week camp program over COVID. And we had a ton of girls show up. It was girls from every walk of life. They just needed something to occupy their time. Their parents were like, her confidence is gone. Her light is dim. I don't know where my baby girl went. Can you help? And we were like, I don't know. Can we help? Yes. The answer is now yes.
We did it for adults. Certainly we can do it for kids.
So you start to see themes that pop up when you're having these conversations, because we went from 4 weeks on a call series to like people seeing what we were doing and being intrigued and knowing that they didn't have the tools and skills themselves to help lead their child through this, right? Because adults could kind of conceptualize it. They're like, we got to take a break from work. Cool. I'm going to work in my PJ pants. Kids are like, everything got taken away from me. My friends, my sports, my school, my reprieve for a lot of kids. So starting from that call series, going to more individual coaching, you started to pull out themes. Girls were struggling with things very individual to themselves, and we made sure to validate those experiences. But at the end of the day, there were friendship debacles, confidence issues, self-esteem, poor self-talk that we could then dive deeper into. So we started to develop a curriculum around those blaring themes that every girl seemed to come to our calls with, whether it was calls online over Zoom, or we did a lot of in-person coffee meetings at this point in time. It was loud and clear that girls were still struggling with what Jill and I struggled with. So the same themes were being brought from then to now, but they were being exacerbated by the fact that now we're online and we have access to that many more people, and we get to see what people are doing and what we're not doing. And then there's this identity. Am I enough? There's all of these questions that pop up that continue to chip away at a girl's confidence. And when you don't have confidence, you don't have a lot of things, right? If I'm not confident in a friendship and I go into math class and that friend is there, but I have a math test, I'm likely not focusing on my math test, right? It infiltrates literally everything. And what we've noticed in terms of working alongside schools or trying to work alongside schools and teachers have a lot on their plate already. To ask them to talk about social skills within the classroom. Yes, it pops up every now and then, but we got an agenda to get through. Kids have to get to lunch, to first period. They need to know the history test. They need to know their numbers for this. There's not a huge opportunity to talk about these quote unquote soft skills, which is where we saw the huge gaping hole that was going on within development of these skills. Whether it's looking somebody in the eye, shaking hands, being confident in ordering something. If none of those skills work, nothing else really works. You don't just become a kid that didn't practice these skills into an adult that's all of a sudden confident, right? You don't get from point A to point B without having really tough conversations and holding up that mirror that Joe was talking about earlier. So a lot of things have led us here, but at the very base of it, our foundation has been noticing the themes that girls are and families and now communities are really, really struggling with.
And one of the things that came from those aha moments, light bulb moments. I know Kim Gamarose talks about this all the time. And I know she is a dear friend of yours in terms of giving kids the language. If we, and whether that's, and we as in teachers, parents, community leaders, if we can give kids the language for them to be able to have the awareness of like when it happens, oh, hang on, I have this tool that now I have been taught, whether it's through the classroom, whether it's through this other organization, Girls Mentorship, whatever it may be, an executive functioning coach, whatever it is, we are helping them massively be able to solve their own problems. So that's where we've designed a curriculum called Power. Power stands for perspective, ownership, worthiness, empowerment, and reassurance. And it's a great way for us to quickly ask the question, do you feel powerful? Where do you lose your power? How do you cultivate your power when you're stressed or when criticism creeps in? It's a really cool acronym to be able to spring all of these concepts and exercises and activities so girls can be like, I have a language and now I can do it outside of what I've just learned.
Let's talk about the things that you provide. Obviously, we just talked about the curriculum and some language that you've provided for the girls. And so I know, obviously, as you're working with school districts, there are a plethora of things that they can tap into. So will you just share a little bit about, what you offer and then how that's going to benefit the educational community?
Do they know that we have a plethora of things that they can tap into? That's always the question.
Well, let's talk about that.
Do they know that what we have is beneficial?
We're here to help, okay?
These conversations, as Jill, I'm not saying this in a funny way, but they are really powerful. And it's really cool to see the light bulbs that go off in girls' heads, in parents' heads, and with teachers, because our most recent offering, the way we were able to get our foot in the door in schools, which hopefully will lead to more, is through enrichment programs. So we have an after-school program. It's a very high-level touch point in terms of it's 1 hour a week for 6 weeks. The buy-in is absolutely nothing for us to be able to get into schools and start meeting the people we need to meet. But what we're noticing outside of the girls loving these conversations, it's a space for them to just be themselves outside of a student, outside of a friend, outside of a daughter, a sister. The amount of hats that our kids wear, they just get to come in and we say it feels like a big deep breath, because if you're mad, be mad. If you're happy, share that happiness, right? Shared anger is half the anger. Shared joy is double the joy. We really want girls to understand that in terms of community and what spaces like this will do for them. But we're also noticing the teachers sitting in and absorbing. Yes, there is PD and there's personal growth and development for teachers, but I know it's not a huge thing within school districts to provide that for their teachers outside of their normal PD days, which are good and bad. You hear both opinions on whether those are liked or not, but we're seeing the teachers and we're seeing light bulbs go off in their heads, and they're staying with us and talking with us after about how they could benefit from saying a couple of these things in their classes, or how they might want to teach this class because it's really close to their heart because they struggled with what we're talking about and they've never really learned to overcome the same thing we're talking to 4th through 6th graders about. So our heart lies with girls, obviously, but it also lies with educators in terms of filling their cups back up. What we're seeing right now is a huge mass exodus from education, and we understand why. The pay is not that great for what teachers are expected to do, which sometimes feels like working miracles in the classroom. We all know education is at a tipping point, I think, just in terms of joy within a job. We're not seeing a lot of that. So it is our hope, our dream, our goal to provide other opportunities for teachers, because we know what we have is fun. And I don't want to try to sell it on the word fun, but I know fun is also lacking in a lot of educational spaces with job love and when you don't feel poured into, you're not going to pour back into others in a way that feels positive either. And if we think about that, teachers are leading the most precious minds. And it is of our mindset that teachers are one of the most important ones to pour back into, so they can then go take that into their classrooms. So I'm not sure what it looks like, but we've rumbled with the idea of doing a summer camp for teachers, of doing personal growth and development that is similar to how we do it for girls, because we know adults need the work just as much. So as far as the how, we're not really sure what that looks like. We got our foot in the door in a couple of really integral districts here in Arizona, and we're palms up. We're biting breadcrumbs till we get to a little bit more clarity, and then a little bit more clarity, and then a little bit more clarity. But we definitely know we want teachers to help with our after school programs and our summer camps.
And we want to pay them.
We want to pay them well.
I think that's also something that we're hearing, is that budgets are being cut, and teachers who look forward to
those opportunities,
those summer school opportunities are like now left with the question of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to make the money that I can count on when I was doing those type of programs, whether it is after school programs or whether it is after school summer school, pay. So we're like, okay, how can, and like Mary said, we don't know yet what the how looks like, but teachers love kids. And if we, as in our organization, love on the teachers so that they can get poured into, but they don't have to deal with the parents. They don't have to deal with the district. None of that. That's our job. But they get to literally just show up and be great and do what they love and get paid. We're like, okay, does this sound exciting? Would people want to learn more?
It sounds exciting to us.
We think it sounds great.
Well, I know a lot of folks are, one, super happy with the opportunity because that is what they are in the profession for, right? It's for the students. And sometimes all that other stuff that's involved is the stuff that really beats them down. And so just to have the opportunity to be with the students, the kids, that's the best part, of course. In addition to the fact that I'm thinking, like, off the top of my head, when I was a teacher, I did summer school every summer because I need that additional pay, to provide for the family. So I know a lot of educators either have a side gig or something that they're looking for a part-time job, trying to find other ways to bring in some income. So love the fact that that's an opportunity for them. You had mentioned the summer camps. Will you just share out what that is, what it looks like? Because I'm thinking too, like, not only do we have a ton of educators listening, but we have parents that have daughters. I'm thinking, I have 2 daughters in my household. So this would be a beautiful program for them. So as far as like the Girl Mentorship summer camp, what does that look like?
Summer camp it's so hard to describe because it's magical. Like, if we can say that for girls between the ages, our campers are 10 to 13, and then we have a peer leader program for 14 to 18-year-olds. So they're the high school girls who get to come back in and mentor the younger versions of themselves, but they're equally poured into. And we've designed it so that girls can really stay with us and look forward to growing within our ecosystem year after year after year, so that when they are 18 and ready to fly the coop, they're prepared, they're ready to go, and that they can remember their summer camp experience with us. So summer camp
as one of those things that helped them be prepared.
Exactly. Summer camp is all around connection. So getting offline, how do you build connection? How do you build relationships? How do you build friendships? But it really is making sure that girls know that your relationship capital is incredibly important as you grow and evolve and develop into the person that you're becoming.
And how you handle that relationship capital with yourself and others is incredibly important. So we're just coming off of our 4th year. Back in 2021, we thought, how could we make some money? These summer camp opportunities look really lucrative.
We're having the same conversations. How do we just get girls together in one room?
And I laugh at the younger version of Jill and Mary because we had no idea what the undertaking of summer camp looked like. And here we are 4 years later. It has grown like a weed. We had about 200 girls come through this year. It is a day camp. So it's Monday through Friday from 9 to 3. And we teach those principles that Jill mentioned earlier. So luckily in a week, Monday through Friday, that's 5 days. The word power has 5 letters in it. So we start off the beginning of the week really dissecting perspective, understanding other people's perspective, your perspective, the fact that those two perspectives can coexist. No one is right, no one is wrong, because I don't know if any of you have felt the collective of everyone being wrong, regardless of what it is in 2025. We're constantly at each other's throats. So how do we teach our girls to understand that somebody else having a different perspective from themselves is okay based on what they've been through in their life? We negate a lot of personal experience and wisdom, thinking that our way is the way when we don't invite somebody else's perspective into the conversation. Next, we go over ownership. Obviously, that is a hard concept for adults, let alone kids. How do we take personal responsibility for things? We move on to Worthy Wednesday. So what are the things that are holding you back? Did a track coach at one point in your life tell you that you had too much junk in your trunk to run the 200 meters, so you needed to be a 400-meter runner instead, and that has stuck with you, right? Those little things that we don't realize that we're saying that impact somebody for the rest of our life. How do we feel worthy? How do we make others feel worthy? Same with empowerment. How are we empowering as opposed to disempowering with our words? That is also another huge topic that comes up with this age range of 10 to 18-year-old girls. And then when everything hits the fan, how are you depending on the tools that you've cultivated yourself to reassure yourself and others that you're on the right path?
To find comfort and confidence
in the decisions that you make.
Yeah. So we not only have every day laid out, but every activity is thought about through the pillar, every game that we play,
every guest speaker that
and then we have
in.
guest speakers. So outside of just the facilitators leading camp, the guest speakers are super intentional around coming in and delivering a topic around the pillar of the day or the theme of the day. And we have all kinds of speakers, from athletes to
beauty queens,
stylists, to
CEOs,
to improv people, where it's like it's literally the girls' favorite part of the day, and they look forward to it, they relish it, they eat it up. So we really try to take what maybe teachers, if you're listening to this, what a personal kind of development day looks like for you. And we do it through summer camp. Or for parents tuning in, if you've ever been a part of a mastermind or a workshop.
Tony Robbins day.
Yeah, a workshop that is personal growth and development. That's like a weekend seminar. Summer camp is just it's a younger, more relevant version for them, so that we can start the conversations now. And then by Friday, it's incredible to us that girls are transformed. They feel lighter, they feel brighter, they feel on fire to go and be, this new,
I dare say they probably aspire to lead.
Oh my gosh, do we dare say that?
We dare.
Yes, we
do.
dare, but they're so on fire, and they're ready. They're ready to go into that next school year. They're ready to tackle the friendship stuff that's going to happen to them.
And that's not to say things won't happen and they'll forget, because it will, and they do, and that is okay.
Totally.
But we also don't just throw seeds into a field and expect flowers right away either. So what we like to say is we're cultivating that. We're seed planters, and with the right amount of sun and the right amount of watering and the right amount of nurturing from the community, those skills will become the default. The skills will become the habit that they resort to when everything hits the fan. And that's what's really cool about summer camp, just the Monday through Friday, 40 hours with them. We were very hesitant to say a transformation happens, but we can't deny it now. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. I love the analogy, because I just planted some stuff in my yard, and we just assume that it's going to grow overnight and it's going to be this beautiful shrub or bush or tree, whatever you're planting. But what I'm realizing is it takes years for it to, mature over time. And you have the luxury of having repeat participants over years. So I'm curious what that outcome is as far as someone that's been in the camp. What does that look like at the end product for someone that maybe is now coming back to being a mentor for the younger girls?
Someone that comes right to mind was a camper who was with us it was her first camp experience. And then this last season, she came back as a peer leader. So she aged out and then said, okay, I'm going to be a peer leader now, which it's funny because even our peer leaders are equally nervous and intimidated to walk in and now have this new kind of title to their name. But this girl was your stereotypical shy girl. She would kind of fall within the crowd. She didn't want to ever raise her hand or participate, but she was there. She was there absorbing. You could tell that she, was
leaning in.
But she wasn't the one constantly raising her hand or wanting to ask for a job. Wasn't the blurter. So as a camper, I'll never forget this. We had a guest speaker who was a florist come in, and we created these beautiful arrangements. And the concept was every arrangement is different, just like all of us. So we had these leftover arrangements after the girls took theirs home. And there is a senior living center right next to where we host summer camp. So we decided the next morning, that we were going to go and deliver these flowers to them, like do a good deed and show the girls what it looks like, feels like, etc. So as a group, we all go and deliver these flowers, and the shy girl who
sits down at the grand piano in the foyer of this old folks
sat down
home
and said,
I'm going to play a little ditty.
Is it okay if I play the piano while we... And there's old folks sitting with their families in the great room, and we're looking at her like, what? And she plays the most beautiful song, and our jaws are on the floor. And the old ladies are like raising their hands and going back and forth. And it was a moment that Mary and I were like, oh my gosh, look at her.
She came out of her shell. But wait, there's more.
There's more.
She came back as a peer leader and joined us for all 4 weeks of camp this year, and was just that. She did a 180 from the shy girl that we knew the year before, who was terrified to come out of her shell, who was terrified to play the keyboard in our talent show, because we also have one of those, but sat down at this grand piano in an old folks home. She's now she's one of our best referrals. We just started an after school program online, and we got like 3 referrals from her younger girls. She's like, I can't stop talking about this program and how much it's helped her going into her high school. She's a freshman in high school this year, into her freshman year, and just the skills and tools that she's learned
and the friends she's making.
It's wild. It's super freaking cool to understand and to see and to witness that in a very short amount of time, we can dismiss the stories we've told about ourselves. We can take off the jacket of I'm introverted or I'm too shy to do that, to say, I'm going to step into a new version of myself, this new chapter where I do aspire to lead others. And if I'm going to aspire to lead, I need to actually develop and
put myself out there, try it on,
the tools and skills to do so well. So that's one of 1,000 examples I feel like we have over the years.
I guarantee that's the truth. I can also see that in person. I love like that age range too, because you get to see such growth in such a small span of time, but you also know how impactful that's going to be for not where they are right now, but where they're going to end up in the future. And also I'd love for you to talk about that community piece, because I think that's something that we don't really think about sometimes as far as our young people, is that they're looking not only for their identity of themselves and who they're going to be, but also who they want to associate with, and what is that group going to do for them to make them the best version of themselves. So will you just talk about that community component with what you're building?
Yeah, I feel like Jill and I were actually just talking about this. Like, as adults, we have the opportunity to go put ourselves in something, a rec league, a slow pitch softball. We go to the gym, like we do things on our own merit. And I think we take for granted the fact that kids go to school and they should develop friendships or community there. But you kind of touched on it, Josh, just in terms of like, who are those friends, and are they healthy for them? Are they unhealthy for them? Are they peer pressuring them to make poor decisions, healthy decisions? Like, there's a lot of questions in that. And I don't think we think about putting our kids intentionally in a program or a club outside of school in order for them to flex their social skills or start cultivating community on their own. Because with summer camp, we had 64 girls in our first week of camp this year. Some of those girls knew one another and came in together. Other ones made friendships while they were there that they continue on their own right. So seeing them comment on each other's like Instagram posts or join
have sleepovers together.
Right. Join our after school program online and join together because they wanted to do something together, or coming back summer after summer and hearing the school year that these girls had together. Well, we went on a trip or we did this. It's like community at that age is just as important. It teaches us how to have community as adults. And I think a lot of adults, we know this is a narrative that we often hear, is that adult friendships are also really hard to cultivate. So I feel like if you teach kids how to fish at a younger age, they're going to be able to make themselves meals for the rest of their life. I think we just take for granted the fact that, yeah, they're in a sports team at their school, so they'll make friends, or they're in all these classes with these kids that they see every day, they'll make friends. That's not always the case.
And you want to invest in places that are building community that has your kids' best interest at heart. A lot of times we pour as parents our money into sports, which is not a bad thing. We are huge proponents for after school activities and sports and
Team dynamic
stuff. And are we actually asking ourselves the question, is the person leading our kids the right person to lead them?
Or is it drunk Uncle Larry who decided he wanted to take a coaching position and he's telling...
Because there was not another volunteer
Right.
able to do so.
And we don't know that narrative, but we trust him because he's a youth sports coach. It's like the trust is automatic there when we actually don't know what he's preaching on the sidelines.
Right. So we as a company and as the two of us leading the ship, it is one of our greatest values that our standard is very high. We have a high standard that we hold within ourselves because we're leading it first. But we hold our girls to a very high standard. So when they come in, and whether they have friends or not, we immediately address that in terms of there is no toxicity. There is no mean girl behavior. Like there is a standard. And whether you walked in with that standard, cool. Or if you are one of those girls that kind of typically plays around with like talking behind people's back, like
the standard's low, the bar is low.
We're not playing that game, and we're going to ask you to rise to that standard, because if you can practice here and we can have honest and open conversations, everybody knows that it is important for everybody to be seen, heard, loved, and valued, then you can certainly go do that in your own personal life.
And find that, right? So it's not just community now from 10 to 13 or 14 to 18. It becomes the communities that they find themselves a part of in their 20s, in their 30s. And if it's not that, then they know how to go out there and cultivate it themselves.
Love all of that. I have to be careful. If I'm being honest, I could talk to you two for another hour and not even blink because you are amazing. But I want folks that are listening to be able to connect with you, find more information, sign up for your newsletter. I've been flashing your website on the screen for those who are watching on YouTube. So it's girlsmentorship.com for those who have the audio format that you're listening to. But Mary and Joe, how can they connect with you even more to find out about, additional services and all the amazing ideas that you have coming in the future?
Outside of that flashing banner that is so forward and I love it, girlsmentorship.com, and then our Instagram. We're super active on our Instagram. Yeah. We're fun over there. We're funny over there. Not that we need to be funny for you to like us. However, it definitely is a perk of the gig.
One of our core values.
It is to have fun and be funny. So it's spelled the same way. No Y's, no Z's, just Girls Mentorship on Instagram, on all major social medias, but we are there the most. That's where we announce future products and classes and camps,
programs, all the things.
And then on our website, you can sign up for our email list there if you're interested in getting a little more touch point with us throughout the week.
Yeah. And their website's awesome. I mean, if you're looking for more information, they've got videos and, all kinds of different things on the site. So make sure that you're heading over there, signing up for all of the things that we've talked about today. It doesn't matter if you're an educator or a parent. It is going to be beneficial for your student or your child. And man, Mary and Joe, you are amazing. I had so much fun with you at the Vibe EDU event, but to get a chance to connect with you once again has been a highlight of my day, even through my French bulldog snoring and my internet issues.
Hey, that happens to the best of us.
It does.
Oh, you guys are great. So looking forward to seeing all the amazing things. Of course, if you're looking for an easy way to connect with them, you can go to my website, joshchamber.com, or all of the links will be in the show notes for you. So make sure you're clicking on that, connecting with them for sure on Instagram, and then heading over to the website. Once again, that's girlsmentorship.com. And with that, we will see you again next week for another amazing educational leader. But for this show, Mary and Jill, thank you so much for being on Aspire to Lead.
Thanks for
Bye,
having us.
everyone.
We appreciate it.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.